Hello everybody, welcome back to Tom Reads Things. My name is Tom. I hope you are all very well. I feel like it's been a hot minute since I recorded a video last, but it actually wasn't that long ago. It was only cozy reading night last weekend. But I feel like it's been ages because this video really should have been up about a week ago. So today is finally my Victober wrap up. So yes, finally, my Victober wrap-up. I loved Victober this year. I had such an amazing reading month. I read some fantastic books. I enjoyed every little bit of it. I enjoyed watching everyone else's amazing videos. Kate from Kate How did some brilliant videos. She did so many. And it was really nice watching everyone's videos and really getting involved on Instagram and just basically enjoying a month of Victorian literature. It was bloody brilliant. So today I'm going to talk about the books that I read. I had quite what should we call it? Quite an ambitious TBR, if I may say so. And I didn't manage to read all of the books on my TBR, and I knew I wouldn't, and that's fine. But the books that I did read were great. So I read 4 books in Victober, and the first one that I read was Hard Times by Charles Dickens. So I was lucky enough to read this as a buddy read with the fantastic Kate How, who is one of the hosts of Victober. So Hard Times follows the story of Mr. Gradgrind and his family, his 2 children, one of which, Louisa, marries a businessman quite a lot older than her, and friend of Mr. Gradgrind, Mr. Bounderby. And it's about their relationship and all of the things that happen in the town around those characters. So this is an example of Dickens writing about sort of industrialisation and the north of England, which he tends not to write about as much. I found this interesting. I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the buddy read aspect of this book much more than I enjoyed the actual book. So I loved reading it with Kate. It was such a joy to do this buddy read with her. And I think that sort of heightened the experience of reading this for me. As people who have been watching this channel for a while may know, Dickens is one of, if not my favourite author. And for me, this book isn't one of my favourite Dickens. I feel a bit like some of the... Dickens is fantastic at wrapping up different plot lines at the end. Everything comes together in one amazing crescendo and everything pulls together and ties up neatly into a bow and everything's wrapped up nicely. With this book, I felt like perhaps he rushed the ending a little bit, and also I feel that some of the characters and some of the plot lines which were heavily focused on at the beginning of the novel were just kind of left to dwindle towards the end and weren't necessarily wrapped up as well as they could have been. Having said that, I did still enjoy this book. I gave it 3 stars. And it was a great way to get into Victober, reading some Dickens, and especially doing it with Kate. It was an absolute joy. So thank you very much, Kate. Now, the next book that I read for Victober was... whose challenge was it? I think it was Angie's challenge. And that was to read a book by a female author, and you got an extra point if it's an author that was new to you. So I decided to read my first ever Elizabeth Gaskell novel. And I'd heard this book spoken about a lot on BookTube, especially from Katie over at Books and Things. And also I'd heard a lot about Elizabeth Gaskell from Kate How as well, and Lucy from Lucy the Reader, and lots of other BookTubers really. But hadn't ever really picked up any of her works before. And I'm so glad that I picked up this book for Victober, and that was North and South. So for anyone who doesn't know, North and South follows the story of a priest's daughter. The priest decides that he wants to leave the church, and as a result they end up moving from an affluent town or city, I can't remember, in the south of England. He moves his family to the north of England to an industrialised city, fictionalised city of Milton in the north of England. The daughter's name is Margaret Hale, and she develops very quickly a sense of social justice when she becomes aware of the kind of unions and the strikes going on around the mill workers of the industrialised town. And she meets a gentleman called John Thornton, who is the owner of a mill, and it's about their friendship and the relationship that she has with him as a character throughout the book, and also another character that she meets, which is one of the mill workers, and his daughter that she becomes very friendly with. So it's a really, really interesting examination into industrialization in 19th century England, especially the north of England, and the differences between the sort of poorer industrialized towns and the affluent south of England at that time. And it really looks very interestingly at class and people's preconceptions of class in 19th century England. It looks at the developments of unions as a thing, and it looks very closely as well about some amazing female friendships, and it follows a love story that, in my opinion, isn't really a love story until the end of the book, which is really, really interesting. I absolutely adored this book. I'm so pleased that I finally got round to reading some Elizabeth Gaskell, and I cannot wait to read more of her. The character of Margaret has such a strong social conscience, but she's also so incredibly flawed, which I just think is brilliant. You know, she's a really realistic character, and Elizabeth Gaskell writes her in not a kind of fantasized way or a perfect way. She writes her as a human woman, and I think that's so interesting and refreshing for 19th century literature. And I think some of the one-liners that Margaret comes out with in this book are just absolutely brilliant. Two really stick out to me. One where she's like, she said, I'm paraphrasing here, but she says something like, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'm just gonna have to take a minute. I've just been overcome by my own genius." And there's another one where she's like, I was sitting in a field and I could hear everyone working, and I was just so pleased that I was just sitting there doing nothing. She's just absolutely hilarious and a brilliant character. As soon as I finished watching this, I ran to watch the BBC adaptation of it because I'd heard such amazing things about that miniseries. However, the character of John Thornton really didn't sit well with me. He was so different to the character in the book that I stopped watching it, but I have heard amazing things about the miniseries, so I am going to watch it again. Yeah, I just love this. Let me know in the comments section down below if you've read this. I know loads of you had. When I announced that I was reading it as part of my TBR, so many people said, "Oh my God, you are going to love North and South." I know it's one of Katie over at Books and Things, it's one of her favourite books of all time, and it will definitely be on my top 10 books of the year that I've read. It is absolutely brilliant. I've got Mary Barton on my shelves up there, and I can't wait to get to that. The next book that I picked up for Victober was for Katie at Books and Things Challenge, which was to read a novel under 250 pages or over 500 pages. And for this challenge, I chose Dr. Worrell School by Anthony Trollope. So it was such a joy to come back to Anthony Trollope's writing after, I think, more than a year, actually, since I read Barchester Towers. No, actually, maybe not that long. I can't remember. But it's certainly been a long time since I read any Anthony Trollope. Oh, no, actually, I read The Way We Live Now earlier in the year. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it was lovely to come back to Anthony Trollope's writing. Anthony Trollope writes in such a, I wouldn't say simplistic, because that degrades it slightly, but he writes in such an accessible way, but such a kind of exciting and creative way as well. And I'm absolutely thrilled to get back to Anthony Trollope this Victober. So for anyone who doesn't know, Dr. Worrell School follows a vicar who lives in a town, interestingly enough, and he is also the headmaster of his own school that is in the parish as well. He decides to employ a scholar to help him teaching in the school, and also to work with him in the church, and his wife as well. The scholar's wife joins them as well. He soon finds out that the scholar and his wife hold a secret, and it's exposed quite early on in the book what that secret is, and it goes on from there and explores how this scholar and the priest and the wife and everyone else deals with this secret, and what it means in terms of sort of morality in Victorian England and in Victorian English culture. So yes, this book looks really interestingly at the idea of morality, as does a lot of Anthony Trollope's works actually, especially the Barchester series, and it focuses on the clergy in England in Victorian times and what their views were, and it looks at the idea of marriage and what marriage can mean. It's really, really interesting. I thought that the characters in here were so well developed. Even though it's a short book, I found it an absolute joy to read. So I'm so pleased that Katie recommended this as one of the books to read as part of her challenge. It was absolutely fantastic and I bloody loved it. Now then, the last book that I read for Victober was The Complete Poems of Emily Bronte. So this is a collection of all of Emily Bronte's poetry, as the title would suggest. And I absolutely loved it. I found some of them a little bit inaccessible the later that they got, but her early poetry focusing so strongly on the idea of the landscape that surrounded where she lived, the idea of the moors, the wild moors, and the heart of her poetry is all centered around these moors. And I found that so interesting. It was really a joy to read. Emily Bronte's poetry is evocative and creative and dark and spellbinding and wild. It is absolutely phenomenal. If you like 19th century poetry, do give Emily Bronte a read. She is absolutely brilliant. And I can just imagine Charlotte discovering Emily Bronte's poetry for the first time, Charlotte Bronte discovering Emily's poetry for the first time, and just thinking, my goodness, this is absolutely amazing, we have to get this published, and then thinking, how am I going to approach Emily about publishing her works that she wants to keep secret? Oh, it was just brilliant. I really enjoyed this, and I'm so glad that I picked up some poetry for Victober, because I'm not really a huge fan of poetry, but this was just absolutely brilliant, and I'm glad that I decided to mix it up a little bit, not just reading novels, but also reading some poetry as well, and I will definitely be reading some more 19th century poetry. So if you've got any recommendations for that, do let me know in the comments section down below. Now then, that's it for my Victober wrap up. However, I did want to run something past you all, just to get your thoughts really. So I am thinking about potentially doing Vlogmas this year. So for anyone who doesn't know, Vlogmas is where basically I would upload a video every day in December, from the 1st of December up until and including Christmas Day on the 25th of December. It would be 90% bookish content, but there would be a sprinkling of other bits and pieces as well. So we're going to Norway at the beginning of December, so I'd be vlogging that, the Christmas markets in Oslo, also like putting up our Christmas decorations and some Christmas recipes as well, things like that. So I'm thinking about doing it, but if everyone's just like, do you know what, we wouldn't watch it, that sounds a bit crap, don't bother doing it, then let me know in the comment section down below, and probably won't bother doing it. But I really am interested in doing it this year. I think it'd be a real challenge, and I absolutely adore Christmas. Like, I've been watching for the last couple of weeks, I've been watching Lauren over at Lauren and the Books. I've been rewatching all of her Vlogmas episodes from the last couple of years, and just getting myself really excited about Christmas. I've actually just finished drinking a cup of Christmas tea and watching a Christmas film. Goodness me. It's only the beginning of November. Do let me know if that's something you would be interested in. And yeah, I might do it. Who knows? So I hope you all had a wonderful Victober. I had a bloody brilliant, Victober. I loved every minute. I'm already waiting for next year, counting down the days. And I hope you're all having a wonderful non-fiction November as well. My next video, which will be going live very soon, it will be me going through all of my sort of non-fiction collection that I have. So yes, I look very much forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot. Bye.